So the next question that we'll be talking here is in this part 3 video, how is mental health related to constipation? So in my first video, which I spoke about, where I spoke about the way the bowel movements happen, the way the muscular movements happen in the bowel, which is the large intestine, the small intestine, and all those things. You might remember how the spinal cord and the brain both are related, both are actually um, working towards these things that happen. See, although we may think that these ball movements that we pass on a daily basis is very, very insignificant, and then we may forget about it uh, for the whole day, but the body is constantly doing this activity of moving these things the whole day. It is like there is a process which will try to keep pushing. So let's say there are 3 to 5 times movements, the muscular movements that happen um, based on some trigger, such as the food, or based on spicy foods that you're eating, which become more irritants, right? I discussed about that in the first video. If you're eating irritants, that can also promote bowel movements, but that is not healthy, because once if you're constantly let's say many people want to have coffee or tea before they pass bowel movements, because if that is dairy based, or if that is something that the body already thinks is an irritant, then they will tend to burn, they will tend to acidify the mucosal lining. So at that time, the body just wants to push and then get rid of that feeling. So those things will also cause bowel movements, because they just want to get rid of that irritant which is irritating them. Um, so either way, 3 to 5 times is something that these major bowel movements happen, and then body tends to want to push something out. Uh, but then every few hours, I don't remember what is the frequency, but what happens is this loop like action also keeps happening. There is a constant uh, check, or these movements also are constantly happening even when there is no food, because sometimes you are eating food and then suddenly you feel like passing motions, and okay, you go past because your stomach is heavy or something like that. But sometimes in between the day, when you're actually not eating anything, also you feel like going. So why does that happen? Maybe you have not passed motions for some time, or either way, it is not the time where you think the thing is full, but you still feel like going. Why does that happen is because sometimes the body is constantly trying to uh, push things that have not gone from the uh, main push. I mean, I just main movement, right? When the food and all was there. So sometimes it'll understand that okay, there are other things which are still stuck. There are other things which have not moved forward. So it will do a recheck again, and then this entire process keeps happening. So like that, it keeps doing these things. So there's a lot of such activities that are happening which can also consume your energy on a daily basis. So mental stress and many of these things can burn 3 times the oxygen or the energy that you are having. So if you don't have a great lifestyle, where you're already using a whole lot on the digestive process, which consumes about 85% of the body's energy, and you are also having a lot of dehydration in the body, where things are not moving properly, where the muscles are trying to push them, work is happening, energy is being burnt, but the it is not solving the purpose, because there is no enough hydration to move things from one place to the other place. So either way, there's a lot of all these metabolic activities that are happening, muscular activities that are happening, but there is the purpose is not solved, and the body is constantly trying and trying and trying. And on top of this, you are burning energy through mental stress and lack of physical activity and all those things. So basically, the muscles will not have any what do you say, the power to move themselves. So you'll feel drained, and all that. So the very first thing that actually happens is constipation, because body wants to consume energy by giving that energy towards other critical organs like the heart and the brain and all that. So because when you're stressed, what happens? You're using the brain a lot, and there's a lot of cortisol and other things that are produced. So adrenaline would have already come in, and rest of the hormonal work would have stopped, and a lot of SOS activities would be happening at that time. So during SOS, body doesn't think about eliminating or working on pushing toxins out, feces outside the body, because that is the last thing it wants to do. It wants to first work on the heart, the brain, and many of the critical organs which really need that kind of energy. So the very and colon is constantly absorbing and absorbing and absorbing and sucking and sucking and sucking all the liquids as long as the food is not going in. So typically when we are stressed, we don't think about food. We are not thinking about drinking. So we have basically just ignored all our regular activities. So it is quite possible that constipation is the first thing that people notice at this time because of all these reasons. A spiritual reason is when we are stressed. What is stress? Stress is basically you having you have jumped to the future, and your mind is on a certain expected outcome, and you want a certain expected outcome to happen, but if that doesn't happen, what are the possible things that can happen? It is fear, whether it can happen or no. You're anxious, whether it can happen or no. So all of these root chakra related emotions, which are very, very uh, low end in the spectrum of emotions, very, very low frequency emotions, are very high. At that time, what happens? The organs which are around the root chakra, which is in the pubic bone, near the pubic bone, that is affected. Now, what is a chakra? Chakra is nothing but the pressure that the body um, experiences based on the nerve force that is around that area. The so typically the blood will be flowing in a certain viscosity, in a certain pressure and all that. But then when all of these changes are happening in the body, the blood also increases its viscosity, and then there are lots of changes in the blood movement. So the pressure and other. So this changes the current in that area, and then whatever the other organs, whatever there is a sequential flow that is happening, right? So that sequence is disturbed, and either way, the organs around the root chakra are disturbed. So typically, when people are stressed, most of the times they see issues with the gut and below the gut, intestines, and many of those things, periods issues. So all those things are basically because of all those expectations. So when a person calms down, slowly all of these things also get released, because there's a spasm kind of effect when you are in stress. So things go into a arrest. Things like it just gets arrested. So they are trying to conserve energy because it needs to get burned elsewhere. You need some SOS action happening, flight or fight response is happening. In the office, there is a critical issue. You need to think about that. So there's so much of energy and focus that is given to your brain activity at that time. So it is important that you relax, understand spiritually why you cannot be in the future, neither in the past. You have to be in the present, and this sort of releases. And then um, um yeah, so that is why mental health is extremely important for and related to constipation. Next question is spicy foods. So spicy foods, like I said in the previous video, spicy foods are not our real foods. They are not even foods. They are just, we eat them because we like them. Mentally, we like them. Our mind likes them. That we like the taste and all that. So they just want to satisfy the 3-inch tongue, the tongue that is just 3 inch here. So that is where the taste buds are. That is all it needs for. And then we want to be happy. Some dopamine, serotonin, everything has to be produced. Mentally, we are looking at trying to we have a certain memory of those foods, and then we are trying to relive those memories, and then we are hoping that those hormones are going to be produced and make us happy. That's it. Spicy foods, nice foods, all kinds of foods, except that when it is not natural, like fruits, vegetables, greens, which are not naturally our food, if we eat all those things, that is what we are basically expecting inside the body. So when you eat spicy foods, they're ideally not our foods, right? So initially, when we eat spicy foods, things are just going down the drain. You feel very spicy inside in the mouth. So if it is see, these are all voluntary muscles. So you have control, you can feel them and all that. But what about all the involuntary muscles that are inside the body? You don't feel the spice, but then they are burning even those places and going, because that is the nature of chili, that is the nature of garam masala and all those things, right? So they will burn even the inside of the body. So, but then uh, since we are habituated to many of those foods, we can't leave those foods, right? Because it takes a lot of mental courage to leave those foods and then live and all that. So either way, that's another story. But these spicy foods, initially, the body protects itself by creating more mucus, and it protects itself. But over a period of time, the mucus is also acidic, so it tends to burn the walls, which was initially meant for protection. Over a period of time, these mucus itself becomes putrefied and then burns the walls. So over a period of time, the spicy foods will be able to touch the walls and then become irritants, and they sort of, the body tends to want to push it away, like I explained in the next video, a previous video. So they just want to uh, get out. They just want them to get out and then get rid of them. So that is why when you have too much of spicy food, some people tend to go and pass motions. That is about spicy foods. The next one is um, how bad is gluten, dairy, and if someone does not have any problem, can they have it? So see, um, gluten gluten, for that matter, is from from wheat. Of course, in the whole food plant-based diet, wheat is very much a part of consumption. But um, grains are typically not our food, because we can't eat the grain. We can't chew the grain and eat them. So they are foreign to our body. But let's say pigeons and other animals, little animals, can eat it directly the way it is hard. So, especially wheat has been hybridized and worked on for many, many years. The heirloom wheat is no longer there. They have basically altered the state of the wheat, because because it is one of the largest consumed crops in the world. So they had to work on their supply and demand and many of those things. So that is why they brought in science and technology to bring in more produce with less maintenance or all that. So because of that, what has happened? The nature of the protein has changed, and this nature. So, like I said, typically because of the kind of lifestyles we are leading, generations and generations have sort of quality of life has deteriorated over a period of time, over the generations. So when uh, toxins get passed on from one generation to the other generation, not just toxins, we even pass viruses and other things from the previous generation. So many of these viruses, which are so-called not symbiotic germs, which are in our body, they tend to just stay there in the dormant state for a very long time. And then when things like gluten, medicines, artificial stuff which are not food gets into the body, they tend to eat all that, including even heavy metals. They tend to eat all that, and then they tend to uh, what do you say, release their own neurotoxins and all those things. So that is why when we are constantly eating foods that are feeding these things, it it becomes a problem. And then many people who have such germs in their body, um, they tend to experience the issues, but then which is celiac and other issues. But some people, they tend to continue to keep eating it, but they may not see similar issues that you see with constipations or whatever, but they may have other issues. So the body is definitely seeing a hit somewhere else. If it is not constipations, it is somewhere else. So it is important to understand that we should eat foods that are more less starchy. When you have when you put when you mix water in them, they should disintegrate very easily. So that is when you eat that food, even if it's cooked, when you eat that food, they should get disintegrated with the liquids that go inside the body. If they are not getting disintegrated, especially gluten is a protein which is like gummy and rubbery and all that. I've seen this kind of gluttony effect even in other some of the gluten-free flours. I think it's amaranth. I'm not very fond of amaranth because it is also very rubbery and all that over a period of time when you mix the flour. So I don't remember which are the flours, but then there are. See, why did we avoid gluten? It is we are avoiding gluten because first of all, their genetic composition is sort of changed. May not be genetic, but they are hybridized, and our body does not recognize it. First thing. Second thing is they are so gummy that they will go and then uh, sit and then cover the villi of the small intestine. So and then obstruct improper absorption and digestion. So and then they feed the germs which are not meant to eat them, uh, and because such that those kinds of non-symbiotic germs thrive, the symbiotic germs will basically die. So we don't want such a unhealthy mix, and uh, that's why we'll have to avoid the gluten. I'll work on the dairy in the next